Hello, fellow booknerds. This is Meenakshi Girish, and welcome to another August reading wrap up. So, this is a video in which we're going to talk about all the books we read in August and all the feels we got while reading them. So, this was a great reading month for me. I got through so many different books, and I'm not going to waste any more time. The first book I read was Away by Dhruv Bogra. Honestly, I'm not somebody who likes traveling a lot, okay? To be very honest, I'm more of a homebody who just sits at home and reads books. But reading this book had me traveling the whole Himalayas while sitting in this exact seat. Honestly, it's a story about how Dhruv Bogra chronicles his journey on his bike, where he's just traveling throughout the Himalayas and all the solo journey he goes on and everything he sees around him, and it's just so picturesque. If you want to travel more, read this because it will get you inspired, and honestly, just read it. The story is amazing and the location is on point. The next book I read was The Gymnast by Sanjay Chandra. The reason I really picked this up was because this is a voice I haven't heard before. I've never heard anybody talking about street performers. I've heard a lot about the Olympics. I've even heard about people in the zoo. Like, I've read one or two books by Kafka in which he talks about people performing in the zoo. But The Gymnast, like, this was a street performer, and I didn't know if I could really get into this book because I thought, would I be able to relate to this character? Would their problems resonate with me? But I was amazed at how relatable the story was. Like, just seeing the whole gymnast aspect of this character's life as well as her personal life, all the struggles she faces, everything was just so relatable, and you just feel so empathetic. It made me wonder, how did this author even research about this topic? Because you need to know something in order to be able to write an empathetic story about it. You need to know how to put yourself in that person's shoes. So how did the author do this if this is such an underrepresented part of our society? So this was amazing for me. And sticking on those lines, I then picked up The Dragons Nemesis by Sudip Talukdar. See, the reason why I picked this book up was because I thought it's a fantasy book, because it has a dragon on the cover and it looks amazing. I thought it's going to be something like King Kong. But boy was I surprised when it's just a way to describe like the Chinese season of the dragon and everything, and it just talks about the enemy at large. But once I got over that disappointment, this book was a total eye-opener for me because again, it talks about a perspective and gives voice to an aspect that I've never come across. Like the Indian Army, I haven't read that many books. Despite reading so many books, I haven't read much about the Indian Army. So this was a very fresh perspective and brand new voice for me. And it talks about Major Bakshi, who is the lead role, and how he's just defeating the dragon and trying to come to terms with himself. How did he end up in the black hole? How is he with so many misfits in the Indian Army? And how is he coming to terms with the ego within himself? Because honestly, the first scene just opens with him bashing a bunch of Bollywood actors because they are disrespecting the Indian Army. So this was a great eye-opener for me. And after this, I was a bit tired because, dude, these books might look small, but they have quite a lot of content in them. So I was like, what better way to relax than to read some poems? So I decided to read a bunch of poems, and the first one I picked up was Vague and the Variable by Ananya. Honestly, this book, I was not expecting to love it as much as I did because the title just said it talks about life from different perspectives, and I was like, I've already done that in so many books. But when you read a book, you have a lot more pages to explain about the content. In a poem, you have like 4 lines and limited number of words, and you have to make the reader feel something just using those 4 lines. And honestly, Ananya has done such a good job because she talks about life from different perspectives and how to arrive at peace within yourself, how to get that tranquility all from within. And this was reflected in the next book I read, which was Beloved Mother by Saher Lalani. And the reason why I loved this as well was because it was an ode to the author's mother, and she's just talking about how her mother had helped so many vulnerable children in Tanzania and Kenya and Pakistan, and she cared for all of them. And among all of this, she's also spoken about how healing comes from within, like coping with the loss of a loved one, and how you can heal only if you accept to heal from within. And this was truly beautiful for me because I have a huge emotional sentiment for my mother, and reading that coming from somebody else's perspective was truly beautiful for me. After this, I picked up some of Dreamland's children's books. It was intended for one of my younger cousins, but when I picked it up, I was like, okay, I'm going to color some of these myself. So these are some of the books I picked up. The coloring aspect of it was one thing, but apart from that, some of them even had pop-up 3D models, which was so interesting to do, and a lot of little puzzles in the way on the middle. And one or two of them even had jigsaw puzzles inside. I just got them thinking, okay, let's color for a few minutes, but this one was like a full set together. It was such a cool experience, and it helped me unwind after such a tiring month. And finally, at the end of the month, for some reason, I found myself picking up, drumroll please, Agatha Christie books. She's one of my most favorite authors, and I found myself picking up And Then There Were None again, which, if you know this author, she's the one who even introduced this theme to such books. Like 10 people go to an island, they don't know why they are there, they have no relation to each other, but one by one they just start dying, and you're like, who did it? Because you suspect someone, but they are the person who dies next. And no matter how many books I read with that theme, the classic is always the best. So this, and once I read that, I couldn't stop. I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which again, unbelievable plot twist at the end, and once I read this, I couldn't stop again. The reason I love this is because it had neither Miss Marple nor Hercule Poirot, who are two of Agatha Christie's characters. Neither of them were in this. It was from a completely different person's point of view, but the twist was amazing at the end. And then of course I picked up these, and these also have Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple, and it was amazing. The reason why I love Agatha Christie's books is because you think it's going in one way, you think you know what's going to happen at the end, but honestly you don't. The plot twist at the end will always get you unawares. So these are the books I read in the month of August. Definitely let us know what you read during this month. What was your favorite book? Did you DNF any books? What's on your TBR pile for September? And stay tuned for the next wrap-up video coming soon. Thanks for watching.